In his book, The Myth of Sisyphus, Albert Camus wrote, "Judging whether life is or is not worth living amounts to answering the fundamental question of philosophy." How we evaluate that position depends largely on how we answer questions relating to our identity and about our place in the world, because the meaning of life, Camus wrote, is the most urgent of questions. This is something that we have always struggled with, to make sense of the world and to find meaning in it. And it is perhaps best illustrated in the tale of Sisyphus, who must roll a boulder up a hill only to watch it roll down, and which he is cursed to roll back up again, for eternity. It is this absurdity of life that makes one question whether it's all worth the trouble. It's this search for meaning that leads many towards religion. Which Karl Marx called the sigh of the oppressed creature. People gravitate towards religion because it holds the tantalizing promise of a miracle, of salvation, and of freedom from pain and suffering. But this promise is contingent on unquestioning faith in and complete submission to God. One's equation with God is often seen as a personal matter, but involves very public visits to houses of worship where devotees must pay obeisance. Through history and across religions, people have also made long and grueling pilgrimages to these shrines of devotion they've built. The degree of difficulty involved in successfully completing a pilgrimage perhaps weighs in on one's final karmic score. Hindu pilgrimage sites are scattered across the length and breadth of India and attract a large number of devotees through the year. But among the annual pilgrimages, the largest, surprisingly, is the Kanwar Yatra. Surprising because it has gained popularity only over the last couple of decades, during which time the numbers have swelled from just about a few thousand in the 1980s to over a few million now. It's surprising also because it's not a pan-India phenomenon and is confined largely to the north. Scheduled for Shravan, the 5th month of the Hindu calendar, which corresponds to the July-August period, the Kanwar Yatra is dedicated to Lord Shiva. But how and why did the Kanwar Yatra start?
इसके ऊपर कई कहानियां बनी हुई है, कोई एक नहीं है फिक्स के भाई उसी की वजह से कांवड़ आ रही है।
कांवड़ यात्रा कब से चल रही है कोई नहीं जानता, क्योंकि इसके पीछे की जो कथा है समुद्र मंथन से जुड़ी हुई है।
जब समुद्र मंथन हुआ था तो उसमें से विष निकला था,
जिसको धारण करने के लिए कोई देवता आगे नहीं आया। अगर उस विष को समुद्र में उल्टा डाल अगर उस विष को अब झेलने वाला कौन था? भगवान शंकर लास्ट में आए, उन्होंने अपने उस विष को यहाँ धारण किया।
तो उससे क्या हुआ था, शिव जी का जो शरीर था वो नीला होने लग गया था, वो जल गया था।
तब ऐसी स्थिति में गंगा जल से उनके ऊपर अर्पण किया जाता था और ये कामना की जाती थी कि उस विष की गर्मी समाप्त हो जाए।
The same tradition is followed even today. So there is a saying in our scriptures that whoever does this to Lord Shiva, the person will get lot of punya, virtues.
The Kanwar Yatra takes its name from the bamboo pole, or the kawad, on both ends of which these pilgrims, who are now commonly known as Kanwadiyas, fasten pots and vessels filled with water from the river Ganges. Balancing this kawad on one or both shoulders, Kanwariyas then walk to their hometowns, which are often over 100 or even 200 kilometers away, where the water is used for libations in Shiva shrines in their neighborhoods. And it all begins in Haridwar. Quite literally the doorway to God, Haridwar straddles the promise of religion and the fulfillment of it. It's the door connecting this, the temporal world, to the next. Much of the sacredness of Haridwar derives from the Ganga that flows through it. And suitably, a grand public prayer is held every evening to celebrate the mighty river. Devotees travel to Haridwar to take a dip and bathe in the Ganga, because like many other rituals, the act enjoys greater sanctity when performed in this ancient temple town. All deaths in the family and connections across generations of Hindus are recorded here in tomes as weighty as the onerous obligation of rituals that must be performed not only for the eternal peace of the recently departed and for one's ancestors, but also for one to be freed from the Sisyphean cycle of birth and death. Roughly 2 weeks before Shivratri, when libations must be made to Shiva, Kanwariyas start arriving in Haridwar to fill the holy water. What begins as a gentle trickle, a murmur, slowly swells into a roaring tide. A sea of people brimming with a mix of emotions and religious fervor. There are scores of economy and budget hotels in Haridwar, but a majority of Kanwariyas stay at the cheaper rest houses and dharamshalas, with many choosing to bunk together in shared accommodations. Many others, for whom the trip is all they can afford, choose to spend their time on the banks of the Ganga, on the ghats. Little islands of white and blue dot what otherwise turns into a saffron landscape for a few days. Like other religions, the color saffron has a special place in Hinduism and signifies renunciation. But unlike here at the Kanwar Yatra, no other Hindu pilgrimage or festival sees such a preponderance of it. The color has also been adopted by the Hindu right-wing groups to represent their political ideology of Hindutva, which seeks to conflate ideology with religion and paint Indianness as a homogeneous identity.
ये दीवारों पर लिखा हुआ है और वो दीवारों पर साफ लिखा हुआ है, अब हिंदू समाज धीरे धीरे खड़ा हो रहा है। वो अपने हिंदुत्व के प्रतीकों के प्रति उसके मन में सम्मान बढ़ रहा है, समर्पण बढ़ रहा है।
Former India cricketer, currently a BJP politician and member of parliament, Gautam Gambhir's 2017 tweet about the colours in the Indian national flag is not just a gross misrepresentation, but also demonstrates how the saffron in it has been politicized and appropriated. Tainted somewhat by association with divisive and communal politics, the colour finds redemption in its association with fire, which is held sacred by Hindus. Like fire, it burns bright on the streets of Haridwar. Here at the Kanwar Yatra, from politicians to revered icons like Bhagat Singh, one's heroes also find place of pride on t-shirts. Bob Marley may seem a little out of place in this pantheon, but in an event dedicated to Shiva, it seems right that the celestial being should be the leitmotif.
ये गलत बात है कि राजनीति इसमें बढ़ रही, लोगों ये मोदी के कपड़े, ये मोदी के उसके क्या नाम उसका योगी के, ये गलत है. इसमें राजनीति कभी नहीं चलनी चाहिए. ये तो भोले की कृपा है, भोले से बाहर भोले कपड़े चलने चाहिए इसमें सब.
10 साल पहले या 5 साल पहले टी शर्टें जो चली थी वो एक नॉर्मल टी शर्ट आती थी. हौजरी कपड़े में ले लो आप कि खाली भोलेनाथ बने हुए हैं और वही सबसे ज़्यादा जो कावड़िए पसंद करते थे. लेकिन धीरे धीरे रुचि बदलती रही, ऐसा ना फैशन बदलता है. तो कोई कह रहा है कि भोले में तिरंगा चाहिए, कि हमें देशभक्ति वाला भोला चाहिए. तो एक भारत माता में थोड़ा सा आपका स्पिरिचुअल इफेक्ट आ जाता है.
अब नया से नया फ़ोटो मांगते हैं कि फ़ोटो भोले बाबा का नया नया फ़ोटो हो. जैसे कि अब पिछले साल से चिलम का बहुत डिमांड है, तो चिलम फ़ोटो का बहुत डिमांड रहा. इस साल भी मोटा मोटी चिलम ही चल रहा है.
Whether memorializing a moment, an experience or event, there's always someone taking a selfie or a photograph around you. Even here at the Yatra. Every moment must be captured on camera. Sacred or profane, everything must be documented and must be turned into a spectacle. And with all the embellishments, the decorations and bling, the modern Kanwar makes for quite a spectacle. In the late 1980s, early 90s, when the Kanwar Yatra was a low-key affair, the Kanwar, like life itself, was simpler. A bare bones structure comprising a bamboo staff with 2 receptacles for the holy water on either end of it. Many today continue to practice that no-frills traditional simplicity. Some, perhaps for the sake of convenience, have further deconstructed the Kanwar using cloth pouches or small plastic bottles to fill and carry the water. Most, however, prefer a scaled-up version, which can range from decorated Kanwars with baskets on either end to metallic pots on flexible bamboo staffs to tall towers like these. The degree of the scale-up, of course, depends on the resources available to one. The greater the resources, the bigger the production. Like all other temple towns everywhere else, religion is inextricably linked with the local economy in Haridwar. One drives the other, creating livelihood opportunities. When millions of people arrive in this small town for the Kanwar Yatra, these opportunities increase exponentially. Because besides accommodation, food, and other temple town staples, everyone among this teeming multitude needs a Kanwar. Many people prefer to buy the different components and build the Kanwar themselves. Everyone will still need to buy vessels to carry the water. Everyone needs decorations for their Kanwars. Everyone needs clothes and comfortable footwear for the long walk back. They'll need all sorts of personal and Kanwar-specific accessories. And with so many people discarding their old Kanwars, even recycling is a somewhat viable business at this time. Young boys fish out the discarded Kanwars from the river and send them for recycling to be fixed and resold. Opportunities are vast, and returns are so good for some that they are able to earn in these 2 or 3 weeks as much as they would otherwise make in months.
जब कांवड़ यात्रा स्टार्ट होती है, हमारा जो बिजनेस होता है वो 40% एक्स्ट्रा बढ़ जाता है, जिससे कि हमारे को अच्छा प्रॉफिट होता है और हमारे को इंतजार भी रहता है इस सावन के मेले का।
डबल हो जाता है, डबल डिबल हो जाता है काम, संभलता भी नहीं लोगों का।
हमारे यहाँ पिछली बार का जो मतगणना की गई थी 1.5 करोड़ बोला आया था 4 दिनों में, तो 1.5 करोड़ की संभावना आप समझ लो कि कितना व्यापार मिला होगा। हमारे हरिद्वार में लगभग ऑन एन एवरेज सेल अगर मेन सेल 20,000 या 25,000 या 10,000 जा रही हो, इस समय उठ के आखिरी के 3 दिनों में लाख रुपए सेल चली जाती है, तो इससे बहुत फर्क पड़ता है व्यापार में।
Bhola is among Shiva's many names. It means simple, gullible, and naive, which is how Shiva is perceived, as being free of wily machinations. All attributes that are believed to be mirrored in his followers as well, thereby anointing each one a Bhola. For the duration of the festival, the 2 or 3 weeks it takes for the devotees to arrive and leave with the water from the Ganga, everyone is Bhola. Not just the Kanwariyas, but everyone. And the town reverberates with calls to 1 million Bholas. But who are these Bholas? Who is the average Kanwariya? There are more girls and women doing the yatra today than ever before. There are young boys, for many of whom the yatra is a sort of rite of passage. There are middle-aged and elderly men who come for the yatra. There are self-employed men, big and small business owners, chartered accountants and other professionals. But they are the exceptions. The average Kanwariya represents a certain demographic. Almost always male. Young, between 16 and 30 to 35 years of age, and invariably working class. So, what brings them here?
मेरा भाई है, वो थोड़ा पहला ऐसे तो उसके नाम से मैं आ रहा हूँ। कब होगी तो काफ़ी टाइम हो गया मेरे को आते, भगवान ने चाहे तो हो जाए, कुछ इम्प्रूवमेंट हो रहा है उसमें भी, तभी इस वजह से मैं आ रहा हूँ।
मन्नत मांगते हैं जय घर में सुख शांति बनी रहे, रोजी रोजगार में बरकत दे, दुनिया देशवासी हैं अच्छे रहें, और क्या मन्नत, कोई धन दौलत तो मांगते नहीं।
मन्नत यही है कि हमारा घर बार अच्छा चलता रहे और हम लोग अच्छे रहें और अच्छा काम धंधा करें और हमेशा आते रहें।
For some, it's about thanking the Lord for the wishes they believe have been granted.
कुछ बोला था मैंने, वो मेरा पूरा हुआ।
तकरीबन 22 साल हो गए सर मुझे जाते हुए। 22 साल में मैंने बहुत कुछ पाया उसकी कृपा से, भोले की कृपा से।
भोले बाबा की बहुत मेहर है हम पे, बहुत कुछ दिया, जो मांगा हमें वही मिला।
They believe it's a matter of when rather than if their wish will be granted. Some are determined to make as many trips as it takes to remind the Lord of their pending request.
मैं कावड़ इसलिए लेने आता हूँ जब तक मेरा घर नहीं होगा तब तक मैं कावड़ लेने आता रहूँगा और मैंने ऐसा कोई पाप नहीं किया आता रहूँगा और पाप भी धुलते रहेंगे अपने मेरे और जब तक भोले बाबा की इच्छा होगी जब तक मैं कावड़ लेने आता रहूँगा.
For many others, it's simply about gratitude. Gratitude for whatever their lot in life might be. Because life, they believe, is the gift.
भोले बाबा की बारात लेने आते हैं बस उसी की बारात की मन्नत होती है वो पूरी करने आते हैं.
हमारी कोई मनोकामना नहीं है, मनोकामना अपने आप भगवान शंकर पूर्ण कर देते हैं.
भगवान भोलेनाथ ने हमें सब कुछ दिया हुआ है. हमारा सिर्फ मेन उद्देश्य ये है कि भारतवर्ष एक प्रगति और उन्नति की राह पे चले और जो जिस तरह से क्राइम बढ़ रहा है, आतंकवाद जिस तरह से बढ़ रहा है, उसके ऊपर अंकुश लगे. हम भगवान भोलेनाथ से एक ही अपनी प्रार्थना लेके आते हैं कि इसके ऊपर अंकुश लगे.
भगवान का दिया सब कुछ है, ऐसी कोई इच्छा नहीं है कि उन्होंने बिना मांगे ही सब पूरी कर दी है.
They believe that, like life, this journey, this pilgrimage is at the pleasure of Lord Shiv. They are here only because Bhola has wished it so. He has called them, they say.
बाबा का आशीर्वाद है, बाबा बुलाते हैं तो हम आते हैं.
बोले बुलाते हैं इसलिए आते हैं, बगैर इनके बुलाए कौन आए.
जब तक वो बुलाना नहीं चाहेंगे तो हम आ नहीं पाएंगे, वो बुलाएंगे तभी हम आ सकते हैं.
And millions heed that call and arrive chanting Bol Bum, Bum Bum. Without being facetious, one has to wonder if Bhola has suddenly started to call out to devotees in the last 20 odd years. Did he not call before, or did devotees not heed the call? Because it's only during this time, in the last 20 years or so, that there's been this explosion in the numbers of devotees doing the yatra.
I remember, this was way back in the 60s. I remember in the month of Sawan, occasionally one old person with a Kanwar with him, not necessarily dressed in saffron. That was the interesting part. Not necessarily dressed in saffron. That person, trudging his way along, sometimes he would have his old wife with him, carrying some food, water, whatever else. And these people, more than anything, were, objects of curiosity. Then in the 70s, one started seeing some of these people on the highways. I used to go to school to Delhi, so one would see them. Again, very rare. Maybe through the whole month one would see 10, 15 people, moving like this.
कावड़ियों की संख्या पहले थोड़ी थी, अब ज़्यादा काफ़ी होगी. अब तो करोड़ों की संख्या में हाँ, लेकिन पहले तो ये करीबन 2-3 हज़ार की संख्या में चल रहा, 84 के लगभग चल.
So what explains the surge and this very vocal expression of religiosity? In his book, Uprising of the Fools, Pilgrimage as Moral Protest in Contemporary India, sociologist Vikash Singh says, the yatra offers a departure from the chores, struggles, banality, temptations and the humiliations of everyday life. Or is it the rediscovering of an old religio-cultural tradition, perhaps like Chhat Puja? Is it an assertion of identity and place in an unequal and unjust social order? Is it because the yatra, which mirrors the hardships one has to endure in life, will serve as validation that they can hold out against that system? Or is it simply a consequence of aggressive marketing by the Hindutva organizations? Perhaps it's a little bit of each. A combination of all these reasons that have made the Kanwar Yatra so immensely popular and why so many people from North India come to Haridwar for this pilgrimage. And yet, it's not in the coming to, but in the going from Haridwar that this pilgrimage is deemed to begin. Unlike others, this pilgrimage doesn't culminate at a specific shrine or in a temple town. It begins from one and culminates in thousands of different Shiva temples in the devotees' respective neighborhoods. But before they can begin their journey back home, Kanwadiyas must fill their vessels with water from the Ganga. Many say a little prayer and invoke the gods before they start. For some, this can mean dipping their kavards in the Ganga or sprinkling some holy water on it. But like the process of building the kawar, sometimes this seeking of blessings can also be elaborate and involve rituals, which are almost always supervised and conducted by the ubiquitous and ever-eager priests. Finally, it's time to start back. Because of the magnitude of what lies ahead, the long distances that Kanwadiyas have to walk in the hot and energy-sapping conditions, this walk back has to be carefully planned, because come what may, they have to reach the neighborhood shrines and offer this water on Shivratri. The total distance they have to walk and the distance they believe they can cover between the 2 or 3 or more breaks they need to rest each day are important factors while making that plan, as are one's age and state of physical fitness. Contingencies have to be factored in as well. But Kanwadiyas suffer from few misgivings. They believe that Shiv, on whose invitation they are here, will see them through even impossible situations. Tales of miracles abound.
एक बार की बात है 4 साल पहले की, मेरे मुंह पे दाने दाने निकले हुए थे बहुत ज़्यादा। मैंने मेडिकल भी जांच करवाई, यहाँ के डॉक्टरों को भी दिखाया, मेरे को बिल्कुल रास नहीं आया। कावड़ पे जाने के लिए हम सब तैयार थे। हमारे सब मित्र बोले कि चलना है भाई। मैं कहा भाई अब मेरे मुंह पे दाने निकल रहे हैं, मुश्किल है मेरा जाना। बोला नहीं चलना पड़ेगा। मैं कहा ठीक है चलेंगे देखेंगे। रात को हमने अरदास लगवाई बाबा को, बाबा हमारे से कौन सी गलती हुई है जो आप मेरे को नहीं बुला रहे हैं। अगले दिन सुबह हम उठते हैं तो मेरे मुंह पे एक भी दाना नहीं था। ये बाबा का चमत्कार है।
मेरी मम्मी की ज़्यादा तबीयत ख़राब थी, उनका ऑपरेशन था तो उनके सांस कम बता दी थी कि भाई बचनी मुश्किल है। मेरी बहन का फ़ोन आया, इतनी देर में मैं आकर बैठी, मुझे भोले शंकर की तस्वीर दिखी। मैंने उनसे कहा कि भाई पूरा महादेव मैं तुम्हारी कावड़ चढ़ाऊँगी, मेरी मम्मी की तबीयत बिल्कुल ठीक हो जाए। तो 3 दिन में मेरी मम्मी को होश आया और बिल्कुल अच्छी तरह। तीसरे दिन तो खुद चादर बिछा दी उन्होंने।
And as the Bruce Springsteen song goes, at the end of every hard day, people find some reason to believe. What this image brings to mind immediately is a figure from Hindu mythology, श्रवण कुमार।
श्रवण कुमार की तरह की मैं भी कोशिश करके देखूंगा।
Often cited as the epitome of a good son, Shravan Kumar carried his aged, blind parents to different pilgrimage sites in a basket very much like this. And Yashveer is not the only one. Every year, a few others try to emulate Shravan Kumar. He carried them because his parents wanted to visit those sites and he saw it as his filial obligation to take them there. Unlike the mythological story, this is not about the young man's mother and aged aunt's wishes. It's about his.
मेरी माता जी ने मैंने भी क्या था सर कि हमको हरिद्वार मत ले जाओ। फिर उधर से मैं मेरी छठी रानी के साथ कि मैं अपनी माता और चाची को नहला के लाऊंगा। पिताजी तो है नहीं, तो फिर ना करने के बावजूद फिर भी मैं नहला के लाया हरिद्वार से।
They are merely players in his wish to reenact the Shravan Kumar story. The vibrant colors, the music and dancing may add to the drama around this pilgrimage, but Kanwar Yatra remains largely an all-male cast and women only play supporting roles. Their numbers are going up and some now even travel in small all-women groups. But largely, the road out from Haridwar to the national capital and beyond, which is where most of this drama is played out, is what journalist Snigdha Poonam called 200 kilometers of free-ranging masculinity.
In many ways, it's like several small male picnics thrown in together, because if you travel with them, you'll see the same things that a group of men do when they're having fun. You know, they bathe together, they are watching videos together, they are drinking milk in a way that men drink beer in a bar when they're having fun. They are, you know, gossiping about their, girls in their village, or they're talking about the difficulties that they find at work. The usual stuff. So it's not like, so just imagine 200 kilometers of like a loud pub scene. That's what it looks like.
In a testosterone-driven event like this, then, maybe size does matter. Maybe size is a function of this sense of competition one isn't always able to rise above. Maybe it gives one strutting rights, an opportunity to stand out from the crowd. But it's also a monument to one's devotion. This is, after all, a pilgrimage, and it's meant to be hard. The size, the unwieldiness, are part of the self-flagellation that many perhaps believe will help them prove their worthiness as devotees, and by extension, make them eligible for divine largesse. Be it the big tableaus, the t-shirts, the hockey sticks and baseball bats, everything at the Kanwar Yatra projects a stereotypical idea of masculinity. Of a muscular Shiva, of bigness, machismo. Exceptions, as almost always, come from voices on the margins, from those who've suffered the worst consequences of the prevailing status quo. Among the most disadvantaged, Dalits have been at the receiving end of a skewed, oppressive and utterly callous social hierarchical system for centuries, and Vijay Kumar, a Dalit, has undertaken this yatra to make a quiet statement.
मैं नोएडा जा रहा हूँ, जो बहन जी ने दलितों का प्रेरणा स्थल बनाया है, वहाँ बाबा साहब के इस गंगा जल से पैर धोना चाहता हूँ। मेरा मिशन है कि जो बाबा साहब ने जितनी शिक्षा ग्रहण की है,
मेरे समाज के लोग अगर आधी भी शिक्षा ग्रहण कर लें तो वो बहुत आगे जा सकते हैं। जो भी समाज है हमारा, जनरल हो, पिछड़ा हो या SC ST वर्ग हो, सभी को मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि वो शिक्षा पे ज़्यादा जोर करें। सामाजिक जो न्याय है बराबर लेके चलें। हिंदू मुस्लिम जो भी हैं सब भाई हैं, कोई झगड़ा ना करे। मैं एक मिसाल पैदा करना चाहता हूँ कि जो है बाबा साहब की मैं अकेला कांवड़ ला सकता हूँ इतने सारे कांवड़ियों के बीच में और मुझे कुछ नहीं कहा जा रहा, तो ये एक बहुत बड़ी बात है। जय भीम, जय भारत।
After a point, everyone needs to take a break, to rest and to give their bodies time to recover before they can start walking again. And they're spoiled for choice, because whichever path they choose to take back to their respective hometowns, it'll be dotted with scores of resting places where they can sleep, have meals, bathe and recuperate.
देखो जी, मुजफ्फरनगर से चालू हो जाती है जी सेवा, उससे परे कुछ नहीं। उससे परे तो लोग बाग भोले को देख के किवाड़ दिले और मुजफ्फरनगर से तो दूध मिले, दही मिले, भोले को सब मिले, नुहा दे सेवा में।
Outside every camp, temporary wooden structures are erected where Kanwariyas can safely keep their Kanwars for the duration of their stay. Every camp has an army of volunteers who take on various roles and responsibilities to cater to the thousands of Kanwariyas who stop by. They see serving Kanwariyas as part of their religious duty. Many of these camps are organized and funded by local Hindu communities. In some places, Muslim groups do their bit for the pilgrims. Some camps are funded by local traders and business owners.
यहाँ पे मतलब हर तरीके की सुविधा देते हैं कांवड़ती के लिए जो शादी में होती है। यहाँ पे ये बाबा की बारात है, इसमें तो 1000 का पता नहीं, 2000 का पता नहीं, 10,000 का पता नहीं।
A large number of camps are also organized by Hindu right-wing groups, for whom this is a tailor-made opportunity to proselytize and further their ideology.
एक कांवड़ देश के नाम।
आज ये जो आप देख रहे हैं, यहाँ करोड़ों व्यक्ति आ रहा है इस समय इस कांवड़ मेले में। तो और विश्व हिंदू परिषद कितना बड़ा कार्य करती है इसके लिए। उन्होंने गांव में जा जाकर प्रसार प्रचार किया। अरे चिकित्सा शिविर लगाती है, भोजन की व्यवस्था करती है। मेरा परिषद का कार्यकर्ता उसकी सेवा में तत्पर है।
And the national flag has become a handy tool to promote their cause of aggressive nationalism. Until 2014, its use in the Kanwar Yatra was quite unheard of. A year later, a sprinkling of them could be seen in the sea of Kanwars. By 2018, they were everywhere. Nothing wrong with that, and it's not illegal either.
ये तिरंगा तो राष्ट्रीय भावना, इस कांवड़ मेल ने पूरे क्षेत्रों में एक राष्ट्रीय भावना को जागृत किया। कारण क्या है कि राष्ट्र परमो धर्म। अगर राष्ट्र सुरक्षित होगा तो धर्म भी सुरक्षित होगा, और जब राष्ट्र ही सुरक्षित नहीं है तो धर्म कहाँ से सुरक्षित होगा। तो इस कांवड़ मेले ने जहाँ धार्मिक आस्थाओं का प्रश्न है, वहाँ पूरे भारतवर्ष में राष्ट्रीय भावना को जागृत करने का भी एक बहुत बड़ा कार्य किया है।
इसका कोई खास पर्पज़ नहीं है। हम इस तिरंगे को अपनी सेना के लिए समर्पित करते हैं। जो हमारे शहीद जवान हैं उनको हम इसको समर्पित करते हैं।
हम लोग अपने धर्म को अपने देश के साथ जोड़ते हैं। देश पहले है, धर्म बाद में, इसलिए हमने ये फ्लैग लगाया।
all citizens have the right to fly, use or carry the flag. But in so doing, they have to follow a set of rules. The Flag Code of India 2002.
The Flag Code of 2002 is the piece of legislation which provides the guidance to determine what would be the reasonableness of the restrictions which ought to be imposed on this right.
In 2017, workers from the Bargaon Tea Garden in Assam were booked for disrespecting the national flag because they unfurled it while their torsos were bare. That they were celebrating India's Independence Day did not matter.
विषय कुछ और रहा होगा मेरे भाई, ये संभव नहीं है और आसाम में भी संभव नहीं है। आज आसाम में राष्ट्रवादियों की सरकार है।
They were charged under the Prevention of Insults to National Honour Amendment Act. In 2018, Shahrukh, a poor, illiterate railway porter, was arrested for violation of the Prevention of Insults to National Honour Act 1971 because he had hung the national flag upside down and used it as a screen for shade in his doorless house. Does this mean the flag code is sacrosanct? On evidence, clearly it's not. According to Rule 2.2, Clause 4 of the Code, the flag should not be flown on any vehicle except in accordance with provisions contained in Section 9 of Part 3 of this Code. Section 9 mentions no circumstances under which the flag can be flown on vehicles for religious reasons.
When they are flying the two flags together, what message they are giving to the society is that these two flags are same. So what they are trying to tell us that this flag which belongs to the entire country, the country which is a secular country, it has all different kinds of religion. This flag belongs to that country. And here is this flag which belongs to one particular religion. And by putting both the flags together, by trying to show us that these two flags are same, what they're trying to do is they're trying to show that this country only belongs to this particular people of this particular religion or the people who are following this particular faith. And that's how they're trying to erode secularism, which the Supreme Court has defined to be one of the basic structures of our constitution.
Rule 2.2, Clause 8 states that no other flag or bunting should be placed higher than or above or side by side with the national flag. Rule 2.1, Clause 7. The flag shall not be used as a receptacle for receiving, delivering, holding or carrying anything. Rule 2.1, Clause 4. The flag shall not be used as a drapery in any form whatsoever. Rules, of course, are for others. Kanwaryas can always get off scot-free. But the flag isn't all the Kanwaryas get a free pass on. While young, popular film stars, all women incidentally, get hauled over coals for alleged consumption and possession of weed, Kanwaryas get to trip in the name of religion. The Yatra has many rules, a set of unwritten laws that must be followed. About how one should carry and rest their kanwar. About what Kanwaryas can and cannot eat. About soaps and mirrors, both of which are not allowed.
जब तक हम अपने टारगेट पे नहीं पहुंच जाते, शिवलिंग पे जल नहीं चढ़ा देते, जब तक हम घर नहीं जा सकते।
पहली बार जैसे मैं कावड़ लेने गया ना, तो पीछे से कोई रूल होते हैं घर के, परहेज, तड़का नहीं लगाना सब्जी में, कपड़े नहीं धोने, परांठे नहीं बनाने, वो मैं कह के नहीं गया और उस दिन मेरे पहले छाले पड़ गए।
रास्ते में हम कच्चा खाना नहीं खाना होता, हम कच्ची रोटी या कच्चा खाना खाएंगे तो हमें नहा करके वो कावड़ उठा के चलना होगा।
सात्विक भोजन करना है, किसी से अनुचित बातें नहीं करनी, बच्चों को मारना नहीं है, डांटना नहीं है, ये हर प्रकार के नियम लागू होते हैं। परिवार हमसे ज़्यादा हमारे परिवार को इस चीज़ की ध्यान रखना पड़ता है।
मेरे पास इस टाइम बोतल वाली कावड़, ये 2
ये कावड़ हैं, 2 कैन में मेरे पास गंगा जल, पवित्र गंगा जल है, इसको मैं जब उतारूँगा तो पीछे से उतारूँगा, पीछे से, आगे से इसको सिर के ऊपर से नहीं उतार सकता। इसको जहाँ पे भी हम टांगेंगे रखना होता है, ज़मीन पे नहीं रखेंगे इसको, कहीं रस्सी पे या पेड़ के, वो पेड़ गूलर का पेड़ या बड़ का पेड़ नहीं होना चाहिए, ये हमें ध्यान रखना होता है। जब भी हम शाम को कावड़ उतारते हैं तो उसकी पूजा जोत बत्ती धूप अगरबत्ती करके पूजा करके फिर हम रात्रि को जो है ना निंद्रा के लिए जाते हैं। कि हम नमक भी खाते हैं तो हमारे को वो नहा धो करके चलना होता है।
It's an exhaustive list of do's and don'ts. Strict instructions on ways to maintain purity of one's person and of one's cover. But what's missing from that list is the law against littering and against what we believe to be our right to behave irresponsibly in public spaces. These little islands of waste that build up around resting camps and the pit stops that Kanwariyas make for water and refreshments obviously don't violate the notions of purity that religion otherwise obsesses over. Before they start their journey back home with their kawards, hundreds of thousands of Kanwariyas visit Nilkant, the immensely popular and deeply revered Shiva temple near Rishikesh. Such heavy footfall here makes the area attractive for business as well. Many are temporary arrangements and will be disbanded after the Kanwariyas leave. What will stay though is the heavy footprint the business owners and pilgrims leave behind. And because the adjoining forest area in Haridwar sees regular movement of wild animals, this can create chances of man-animal conflict.
जंगल के आसपास कैंप लगते हैं, उसमें जितना वेस्ट है, भोजन जो बचता है, और वो सब फेंकते हैं और प्लास्टिक डिस्पोजल्स का प्रयोग करते हैं। उससे क्या होता है, वाइल्ड लाइफ, जितनी भी आसपास के वाइल्ड लाइफ हैं वो सब वहाँ अट्रैक्ट होती हैं। तो उससे क्या होता है कि जितने भी वहाँ पर कांवड़ में लोग जा रहे हैं उनकी जान को खतरा रहता है और ज़्यादा चांसेस बढ़ जाते हैं कॉन्फ्लिक्ट के। तो इसलिए उससे दूसरा ये नुकसान है कि जो वाइल्ड लाइफ है वो उसको खाती है प्लास्टिक को, तो दोनों को बहुत ज़्यादा खतरा बढ़ जाता है। तो इतने सेंसिटिव एरियाज़ में राजा जी टाइगर रिजर्व के पेरीफेरी में ये कैंप्स ना लगवाएं, अवॉइड करें। चीफ वाइल्ड लाइफ वार्डन को हमने कहा था ये भंडारे बंद होने चाहिए और लोगों को रोकना चाहिए जंगल में घुसने से, लेकिन उन्होंने मुझे ये बताया था कि इसमें मुझे बहुत ज़्यादा पॉलिटिकली प्रेशर होता है। 2014 के बाद से इंसिडेंट्स बढ़े हैं।
Then there is the Mansa Devi Shrine, another immensely popular and deeply revered temple located a short way up from Haridwar. Thanks to the commercial activity, here too the hillside is a sorry mess.
ये तो अपने आप हम लोग साफ करते हैं इसको। ये जो मेला भी ख़त्म होगा उसके बाद में हम लोग अपने हाथ से साफ करेंगे इसको। ये सर 3 दिन का कचरा है, 3-4 दिन का कचरा है, बहुत जल्दी कचरा हो जाता है यहाँ पर। यहाँ यात्री आते पन्नी वगैरह नीचे फेंकते हैं ना, पन्नी जो फेंकते हैं वही उसका कचरा हो जाता है। जितने हमारे दुकानदार हैं सारे लोग साफ करते हैं मिलके।
उसको कोई साफ नहीं करता, ये सब झूठ बोल रहे हैं। मेरे पास प्रत्यक्ष प्रमाण हैं और मैंने फोटोग्राफ्स लिए हैं कि कांवड़ के बाद क्या सफाई हुई कि नहीं हुई, बिल्कुल कुछ नहीं हुआ। और कुछ जगह पर मैंने ये भी देखा कि प्लास्टिक के जितने भी डिस्पोजल थे उनको सब आग लगाई गई।
कचरे का तो खैर ज़्यादा रीज़न ये है कि आजकल यात्री ज़्यादा आ जाता है तो उसमें एकदम ये कर नहीं पाते, तो ये इकट्ठा करते हैं, बाद में जब मेला ख़त्म होता है तो उसके बाद इसको डिस्ट्रॉय कर देते हैं आग लगा के।
Shiva is the object of Kanwariyas' devotion, and the water from the Ganga they carry embodies their faith and is invested with, literally, their blood and sweat and great physical hardship. The carrying of it involves an unwritten but widely practiced protocol. It cannot spill and must not be disrespected. In his book, God's Gateway, Identity and Meaning in a Hindu Pilgrimage Place, James Lochtefeld wrote, as with any other important idea, holiness, evil, beauty, propriety, this idea, in this case of Ganga being pure and holy, is not inherent in the things themselves, but ascribed by people's agency and reinforced by culture and behavioral patterns.
गंगा का पानी एकदम पवित्र और शुद्ध है। कहावत है कि मरने पर इंसान को मोक्ष गंगा से ही मिलता है।
वो आस्था का और श्रद्धा का सवाल है। भाई चाहे कितना भी हो, हम लोग तो उसको माँ के समान मानते हैं और इसीलिए वह जाते हैं।
The Ganga is pure and holy because it is believed to be so. But is it clean? Is it hygienic? In response to a right to information plea filed in 2017, the Central Pollution Control Board said the water from the Ganga isn't fit even to take a dip in.
यहाँ से कानपुर तक गंगा जी की धारा है ही नहीं है, केवल सीवेज है। इलाहाबाद तक सीवेज ही है।
On an indefinite fast to save the river, eminent environmentalist Professor G.D. Agarwal put the blame for the state of the river squarely on the lopsided development policies of the government and its misplaced priorities.
गंगा जी की गुणवत्ता बनी रहे, गंगा जी नैसर्गिक स्वरूप में बनी रहें, उसके लिए जो भी कुछ करना हो वो किया जाए। अगर पोल्यूशन ही समस्या हो, पर मैं ये नहीं मानता कि पोल्यूशन ही समस्या है। मैं ये मानता हूँ कि जो समस्या है वो विकास है, और इस रूप में जितने भी विकास कार्य हुए और जो 4 लेन रोड बन रही है, ऑल वेदर रोड, वो कोई पोल्यूशन की बात नहीं है, लेकिन उसके कारण गंगा जी को हानि हो रही है। जो बांध बन रहे हैं वो पोल्यूशन नहीं करते, लेकिन उनके कारण गंगा जी को हानि हो रही है। जो एनक्रोचमेंट्स हैं, जो खनन हो रहा है गंगा जी की तली में, वो सब गंगा जी को हानि पहुंचा रहा है, पोल्यूशन की बात नहीं है। मैं ये मानता हूं कि गंगा जी जो नष्ट हो रही हैं वो समाज के बदलने के कारण नहीं हो रही, वो नष्ट हो रही हैं सरकार की नीतियों के कारण। गंगा जी को जल मार्ग बनाना ये किसने किया? ये समाज ने किया। क्या बिहार की जनता ने, यूपी की जनता ने कहा कि गंगा जी को जल मार्ग बना दो, गंगा जी में जहाज़ चलाओ? तो ये नीतियाँ सब सरकार की और मूल रूप से केंद्र सरकार की हैं। तो ये केंद्र सरकार को अपने आप ये समझना है कि गंगा जी के ऊपर जलमार्ग नहीं बनना चाहिए।
Professor Agarwal, who spent the greater part of his life campaigning to save the river, demanding free, uninterrupted flow of its waters, died on the 112th day of his fast. That the glacier that feeds the Ganga is receding, that the water in the river is drying up, the impending water crisis both will lead to in a few years, and the catastrophic effect it will have for the millions of people who depend on it for their various needs is rarely part of the discourse. But predictably, the first response from the political right is whataboutism.
मुझे ध्यान में आता है अभी किसी तथाकथित बुद्धिजीवी ने, वो होंगे चाहे जुडिशियल पावर में या कहीं भी, ये कहा था कि वो 4 ml या कितना ml शिवलिंग पर चढ़ाकर ये मान लेना चाहिए कि उनका काम पूरा हो गया। क्या बकरीद पर पर्यावरण का नुकसान नहीं होता है? लाखों बकरे काटे जाते हैं। तब उस समय कोई हिम्मत नहीं करता कि सीरिंज लेकर जाओ और 4 ml खून निकालकर उसी को पी जाओ और मान लो कि उनकी शहादत हो गई है। क्यों इतने बकरों को काटते हो? क्योंकि बकरों को काटने से कितना पर्यावरण संतुलन बिगड़ता है, उनका रक्त बहाने के लिए कितना पानी बहाना कर पड़ता है। केवल हिंदू अवसरों के ऊपर ही पर्यावरण के प्रति संवेदनशीलता जागती है। यह बहुत दुर्भाग्य का विषय है। हम एक त्योहार के अंदर फॉल्ट ढूंढने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, लेकिन आज महंत आदित्यनाथ जी जो उत्तर प्रदेश के मुख्यमंत्री हैं, उन्होंने साफ कहा है कि मैं दिसंबर 18 तक गंगा के अंदर जितने भी नाले उत्तर प्रदेश में गिरते हैं वो सब बंद करा दूंगा।
As these videos uploaded on Twitter by Professor Vijayanath Mishra in June, July, August and in October 2019 show, the deadline of December 2018 that Dr. Jain speaks of has come and gone, but sewage continues to flow freely into the Ganga in Varanasi. The business of religion, much of which depends on the Ganga, especially in temple towns like Haridwar and Varanasi, rarely goes beyond token appeals to keep the river clean. Spectacle is more where it's at. It must be a curse to be revered and deemed holy, as the cow and the river Ganga are, because it causes people to view them as being beyond harm, or at least to be endowed with an infinite capacity to heal themselves. The book of Genesis tells us that God created man in his own image. It will be perhaps more accurate to say that it's human beings who have created God in their own image, projecting their own desires, aspirations, and worldview. God is a sort of canvas on which they paint their own take on things, even their politics. Post-2014, members of right-wing groups have forced shops selling eggs and meat in some areas that Kanwariyas pass through on their way home to stay shut.
क्या मांस बिकना बंद कर दिया जाता है? क्या मांस की डिशेस बंद कर दी जाती हैं? मैक्सिमम कांवड़िये उत्तर भारत के शाकाहारी हैं। उनकी भावनाओं का सम्मान करने के लिए क्या बाकी धर्मों की जब यात्राएं निकलती हैं उनका सम्मान नहीं किया जाता उनकी भावनाओं का? अगर उन लोगों की भावनाओं का ध्यान रखकर ये दुकानें बंद करते हैं लोग, तो इसमें मैं समझता हूं कोई आपत्ति नहीं है।
As a result, in many areas, local police and district administrations enforce compliance to ensure religious sentiments aren't hurt. That a majority of the affected small businesses belong to Muslims tells its own story. In literature and life, pilgrims are looked at with admiration, envy, awe, respect. In towns like Muradnagar and Modinagar, Kanwariyas are quite the superstars. People gather to watch them go past, interact with them and click photographs. Many Kanwariya groups include a live act as part of the ensemble with actors who dress like Shiv and Parvati and dance to music. These live performances are a huge hit with folks in these towns, who are captivated by the tableaus and line up to pay respects at some very shrine-like Kanwars, and sometimes even join in for the evening prayers.
मैं इसे श्रद्धा भाव से भी देखता हूँ, दूसरा इसमें मनोरंजन भी काफ़ी होता है लोगों का।
मेरठ में हम शास्त्री नगर में रहते हैं, वहाँ इतना ज़्यादा मिलता नहीं है देखने के लिए, तो मैं स्पेशल यहाँ पर कांवड़ देखने आती हूँ। 12 साल हो गए मुझे देखने आते हैं और बहुत ही अच्छा लगता है, इतना अच्छा कि मैं आपको बता ही नहीं सकती। बोले बम बम बम, बोले बम बम बम।
Among the biggest stars of the yatra, albeit one whose sparkle owes itself entirely to the amount of jewelry he wears, is Golden Baba. In what is meant to be a pilgrimage, which should be about sacrifice and renunciation, and where the overwhelming majority of pilgrims come from humble backgrounds, Golden Baba is known and popular for the ever-increasing amounts of gold he wears every year. In the evenings, especially in the last few days of the yatra, when the big tableau-like Kanwars start to make an appearance, it seems the whole town gathers on the sides of the road to greet them. Often, they stay on until late at night, and the atmosphere is nothing short of a carnival.
मेरा घर सामने ही है, मुझे यहाँ की ये कांवड़ देखना बहुत ही अच्छा लगता है। ये भीड़ भड़ाका, ये सब मुझे बहुत ही अच्छे लग रहे हैं। कभी-कभी ये सब कुछ देखने को मिल रहा है।
While one side of the road is agog with an overwhelming, if somewhat ear-shattering good vibe, the other side of the road may as well be in a completely different universe of misery. During the Kanwar Yatra, for most part, vehicular traffic is confined to one side of the highway that connects Delhi and Haridwar. The other side of the road is reserved for Kanwariyas. But having one side of the highway to themselves obviously isn't enough. For quicker passage, many switch over to the other side, putting even greater pressure on the already shrunk roads and causing jams that one can get stuck in for hours. For sheer audacity though, nothing quite matches how the dark cowards assume ownership of the roads. Dark Kawar is pilgrimage in the style of a relay race, where the holy water is passed from one runner to the next. It's physically very demanding and is dramatic and thrilling to watch. But it's also like a ticking time bomb that can go off anytime. Dark cowards can be cantankerous, ride aggressively, and expect absolute right of way. The crush of the crowd is so intimidating that many schools and colleges, shops, restaurants, and petrol pumps along the way stay shut during the peak days of the yatra. Hundreds of industrial units located in Haridwar face the same fate.
20 years back and 15 years back, no one industry was here in particularly this Garhwal region. Now you can say more or less 20,000 crores turnover belongs to this Haridwar area. And so simultaneously it impacts on the industrial scenario like transporting of the goods and our manpower movement. We have to face a block for 7 to 8 days by way of our movement of the goods vehicle, and most of the industry are closing their manufacturing operation from 3rd onward to the 9th up to the reason is a week long closure operations of the manufacturing. Of course, is give a big and bad impact to our economy.
Everyone, it seems, has to bear the burden of the Kawariya's piety. The question that bears asking then is, would everyone be as accommodating if these pilgrims were Muslims? Or Christians? Or Dalits? Would the surrender be as meek? Given how members of right-wing groups forcibly disrupted namaz in so many places in Gurgaon in April and again in May 2018, the answer is clear.
देखिए हमारा नमाज रोकने का कोई भी वो नहीं था। असल में क्या है, वो सारे पहली बात तो वे सारे बांग्लादेश और रोहिंग्या आए हैं, तो वे सारे यहाँ का कोई मूल निवासी नहीं है जो यहाँ पर आके वो नमाज़ पढ़ें। और जबकि ईदगाह दी हुई है और मस्जिदें हैं उसमें जाके पढ़ें, हमें कोई आपत्ति नहीं है उनसे, उसमें जाके अपनी नमाज़ कर सकते हैं। वो हम ऐसे षड्यंत्र पर नहीं होने देंगे। सड़कों पे, पार्कों में, खुली जगहों पर हम नमाज़ नहीं होने देंगे। चाहे इस पर हम किसी भी हद तक जाना पड़े, हम उस तक जाएंगे, अपनी आवाज़ को उठाएंगे हम पक्का।
मूल निवासी क्या है, किस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में इस चीज़ को समझना होगा। बाकी हैं सारे इंडियन सिटीजन्स, अक्सर जो हैं वो वेस्ट बंगाल में मालदा और ये सारे जो डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स हैं वहाँ के हैं, मालदा, मुर्शिदाबाद, फिर बिहार के कई जो है वो डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स हैं, असम के, ज़ाहिर है कि जहाँ के ऊपर इकनॉमिक कंडीशंस टफ हैं वहीं से पलायन होता है। तो ये तो ह्यूमन इनसिक्योरिटी है, और जो लोग इनसिक्योरिटी को पनपाते हैं, उसके ऊपर ट्रेड करते हैं, उससे पॉलिटिकल एडवांटेजेस लेते हैं, वो ये बातें करते रहेंगे।
This city
has always had Muslim population. Where do they go to, to perform the Friday namaz? There are not enough mosques.
नमाज होने जाने के बाद वो देश विरोधी नारे लगाते हैं, पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद के नारे लगाते हैं, हिंदुस्तान मुर्दाबाद के नारे लगाते हैं वो.
Alhamdulillah, we are proud to be Indian, and we are proud to whatever we have sacrificed and contributed in the freedom struggle and the whole idea of India. जो आज हिंदुस्तान है, ये एक हज़ारों साल पुरानी तारीख़ है, गंगा जमनी तहज़ीब है, और जहाँ के ऊपर आप चाहें कितना भी चाहें आप इसको अलग नहीं कर सकते, इस ताने बाने को आप बिखेर नहीं सकते.
In December 2018, in Noida, the local police sent out letters to various corporate organizations asking them to restrain their employees from offering namaz in public parks. Typically held in vacant plots of land and in public parks, curiously, namaz threatens folks in a way that hundreds of thousands of Kanwariyas, many of whom carry tridents, baseball bats, hockey sticks and bamboo staffs, don't.
वो कावड़िया जा रहा है और वो लेटा है एक जगह, बैठा है, फर्क है इसमें, अंतर है, उसको इसको नहीं जोड़ा जा सकता. अरे कावड़िया की रास्ते में बैठा है क्या? वो आधा घंटा 1 घंटा कहीं जम के बैठा है मार्ग को रोककर. जो नमाज अदा करता है वो तो एक जगह बैठता है, अंतर है उसमें.
ये कौन से समाज की सभ्यता है कि रेलवे ट्रैक के ऊपर बैठकर नमाज पढ़ोगे और रेलवे लाइनों का जाना रोक दोगे? ये कौन सी सभ्यता है कि अपने मोहल्ले की मस्जिदें छोड़कर अपनी ताकत दिखाने के लिए, नमाज जिहाद है, ये नमाज ऑफर नहीं है, ये अल्लाह की प्रार्थना नहीं है, ये ताकत दिखाने का एक तरीका है. गांव की छोड़ दोगे मस्जिदें, सारे इकट्ठे होकर हाईवे पर बैठोगे क्यों? पार्कों में बैठोगे क्यों?
बड़ी विडंबना है कि एक तरफ तो ये कहा जाता है कि भाई आप मस्जिदों में क्यों नहीं नमाज़ पढ़ते, पार्कों में क्यों पढ़ते हैं, और दूसरी तरफ जब हम मस्जिदें बनाने की कोशिश करते हैं या मस्जिदें बनाना चाहते हैं तो हमें वो सारी उसमें दिक्कतें आती हैं. गुड़गांव की रफली स्टैटिस्टिक्स ये हैं कि ऑलमोस्ट 6 लाख पॉपुलेशन है मुस्लिम्स की. अब 6 लाख तकरीबन आबादी के ऊपर कितनी मस्जिदें होंगी? सिर्फ 13. तो आप ख़ुद हिसाब लगा लें कि कितनी मस्जिदों की ज़रूरत है.
You try and disrupt a Kanwar Yatra, the whole force of the state will come on you. But one guy can come and disrupt the namaz. That's all that it takes.
But if you're a member of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, the RSS, you get a free run off the streets. No permissions are required and no one will dare to object. It's inconceivable that thousands of stick-wielding members of any other religious community will be allowed to march military style and in what is clearly a show of strength through any Indian city. The Lieutenant Governor of Delhi feels compelled to issue notices in various prominent newspapers to community leaders and elders to restrain young Muslim men from performing stunts on their motorcycles on the occasion of Shab-e-Barat, which is observed as a night of forgiveness among Muslims. But the Kanwar Yatra elicits no such requests or warnings. On the contrary, Kanwariyas are welcomed with rose petals and flowers, which are sometimes showered on them from helicopters.
There's a sense in which Muslims in particular are, the other. And I think the idea there is that if you identify the land or public space or the state or the nation as belonging by default to Hindus, then Hindu practices become Indian practices. But if you define Muslims as outsiders, then the ritual becomes coded as some kind of alien ritual. So the conflation of public space with a kind of Hindu identity in that sense is troubling and problematic.
It is this worldview that justifies the exclusion of women at Sabrimala as part of Hindu tradition and culture, but seeks to remedy triple talaq because it's regressive and unfair to Muslim women. Gigantic sound systems mounted on tractors and trucks playing music at unhealthy decibel levels disturb no one. But azan from mosques is deemed an encroachment of the common oral space.
Or you ban all such public displays of religion.
A Jai Shri Ram poster, a banner for a temple for Lord Ram, and this song. About a saffron flag in every home and the rule of Ram may seem innocuous if somewhat out of place in an event dedicated to Shiva, but they are all of a piece, and the song in particular is employed as a tool of provocation. And journalist Kunal Purohit found this same song and a few other similarly provocative ones being played in the state of Jharkhand 2 years later.
It's a very dangerous trend that I have tried to capture in my work, which is basically the weaponization of songs, and I call it Hindutva pop. In a district called Gumla, I saw how there was a huge procession taking shape across the city on the occasion of Ram Navami, and this procession stopped right outside a mosque, and they start playing a very provocative song. The song's lyrics are something like "Mulle ki topi gira do," which basically means sort of toss the skull cap off the Muslim.
Along the way, you're like fed so much jingoism about nationalism and patriotism and surgical strikes and whatever else, and just like that keeps like feeding into you, and it motivated groups try to appropriate the pilgrims because they're just easy targets. Also, they're already projecting themselves as religious. So if you try to tell them to take it beyond that, to not just be religious but like religiously nationalistic, then it's not just Kanwar, it also becomes like an anti-Muslim pilgrimage.
What a lot of my local sort of networks and local police officers and activists told me is that after the Modi government came into power, a lot of the local MLAs and a lot of the local BJP leaders insisted that these Kanwar Yatras go through Muslim localities. And though, let me say that I don't think it's necessarily a problem that a Hindu procession goes through Muslim areas. My worry is at this insistence by Hindu sort of leaders that it must go through these areas. I sort of doubt the intent. And then police officers told me they were bang on in also doubting the intent, because what they did often notice is that when these processions entered these areas, they would very organically become aggressive. They would organically become provocative. Where they were shouting slogans, where they were playing songs, of the kinds that we're talking about, very provocative songs.
The average Kavadiya isn't necessarily a communally driven foot soldier of Hindutva. Because as Christoph Jaffelot says, Hindutva leaders may try to exploit yatras for mobilizing support, but the masses don't always take part in those yatras for the reasons they were supposed to. Yet, their mere participation, and in such exponentially increasing numbers, in this very high-octane event is grist to the ever-hungry Hindutva mill. By design or accident, it feeds this narrative of territoriality which, Jaffelot says, demarcates a space and associates it exclusively with the community. In this case, Hindus. It helps the right wing to promote its idea of nationalism, of the Hindu identity as the only and overarching reality of India.
Ashish Nandi says is that in India the gods behave badly. That means that people of different communities borrow practices from one another. So you will have Hindus incorporating Muslim and Sikh practices, or Christians in Goa, for instance, have incorporated a lot of Hindu practices. This comment that I made about Durga Puja, for instance, belonging to not just Bengali Bhadralok, but Hindus across different caste and class groups, but also to the Muslims of Bengal, was the fact that most of the artisans who make the murtis, the idols, are Muslims, and that suggests that there are these really intricate webs of social, political coexistence which have characterized Indian society.
As in Durga Puja, a large number of craftsmen who make the kavars are Muslims. Muhammad Afzal has been making and selling kavars for 15 years.
लगभग 100 में से 80% मुसलमान लोग ये काम करते हैं. कुछ ज्वालापुर के हैं, कुछ सहारनपुर के हैं, कुछ ज़्यादातर अधिकतर जो है नजीबाबाद के लोग आते हैं. सारी टोटल कावड़ नजीबाबाद से ही आती है. जो फैंसी आइटम होते हैं, जैसे ये फैंसी आइटम है, ये ज्वालापुर से आता है तैयार होकर. हम बनाते हैं, मुसलमान लोग और हिंदू लोग ख़रीदते हैं, बड़ा अच्छा लगता है. ये हमें ऊपर वाले ने की तरह से बांध के रखा हुआ है, लेकिन हम लोग समझ नहीं पाते.
A few years ago, Muhammad Afzal's statement may have amounted to the cheesiness that one usually associates with Bollywood. But today, it's this very cheesiness that's holding out for the long-cherished ideal of a syncretic India. The theatre of celebration that attaches to this expression of faith, identity, and what is increasingly becoming a majoritarian showcase owes itself, in part, to the eager, welcoming audience it finds in smaller towns along the way. By the time it rolls into the national capital, though, there is neither the audience nor the appreciation it seeks. Kanwarias and Delhi don't take kindly to each other. And what unfolds on the streets over the last few days of the Yatra, loosely speaking, is anarchy. The baseball bats and hockey sticks that so many of them carry are announcement of intent and confirmation of the very stereotype that Kanwarias complain of being unfairly reduced to. The outbreak of violence is not just a possibility, it's a given.
उपद्रवी तत्व जो लोग हैं वो इस तरह का काम करते हैं जिन्होंने पूरे कावड़ संघ को खराब कर रखा है.
That nothing swings it like Shiva's will is an enduring refrain among Kanwarias. They are here, they say, only because he wishes it so. Reiterating their belief in the supremacy of God's will. But this stoicism doesn't always translate to passive acceptance of unfavorable events. For instance, the breach of a kawar, an accidental brush against a Kanwariya or his kawar. In 2018, in a particularly shocking outburst, some Kanwariyas attacked and destroyed a car in Delhi because it had brushed against one of them. If being here is contingent on God's will, one wonders why is failure to finish the yatra viewed as anything else. A kawar embodies more than just festive spirit. It's more than just a repository of the Kanwariya's faith. It also carries their dreams, aspirations, their hopes and wishes. Little wonder then, in some communities their homecoming sparks off celebrations and they're received like heroes. And then finally, the moment it's all been building up to, the offering to their Lord Shiv. Their families join in for libations. In Rights of Way, behind the pilgrimage revival, Robert Macfarlane mentions a Spanish palindrome on the subject of pilgrimage. The path provides the natural next step. Its form cleverly acknowledges, he writes, the transformative consequences of the pilgrimage, which turns the mind back upon itself, leaving the traveller both ostensibly unchanged and profoundly redirected. Most pilgrimages and journeys on foot not connected to religion can serve as meditation and as time for reflection. The Kanwar Yatra should serve as the perfect opportunity for it. Most people have to walk as much as 200 kilometers to get back home from Haridwar, giving them enough time with themselves to think, to ponder, reflect. But given that there is a sense of drama attached to almost every aspect of it, almost nothing in this yatra is conducive for meditation or reflection. The Kanwar Yatra is unlike any conception of a pilgrimage or the solemnity and sobriety that one associates with it. In fact, it seems the very antithesis of one. And maybe that's the point, to not see it as only a pilgrimage. Chimamanda Adichie spoke about the danger of the single story. The single story, she said, creates stereotypes. And the problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but that they are incomplete. They make one story become the only story. So it is with the Kanwar Yatra, which is about more than just one thing. For some, it's about livelihood, the loss of it for some, and new opportunities for others. For people in Delhi, it's about the yearly nuisance and endless traffic jams. For those in smaller towns, it's about devotion and an almost Republic Day parade kind of enthusiasm. For some, it's an annual ritual in which the complicit state allows the pilgrims a sense of power they otherwise don't possess in their everyday lives. And when this comes riding a tidal wave of entitlement, it becomes more than just a simple manifestation of religiosity. It becomes a platform for Hindutva and the politics of divisiveness. For Kanwarias, it's like everything. Their very lives hinge on being able to successfully complete the task of transporting the holy water. It's their one mad, desperate bid for validation, for glory and salvation. A metaphor for life and the Sisyphean struggle it can be, this journey is about using one's faith, that beacon of eternal justice that shines for all believers, to get to the other side. Because Sisyphus is about more than just the futility, the absurdity of his curse. His story is all about keeping on. No matter what the odds, it's about the doubtless certainty that you can get to the other side.